Okay. So the question is, are you writing the long tail? And I'm suspicious that most of you know what the long tail is. But today I'm going to refresh your memory on the long tail, and I'm going to share some thoughts I have about the long tail and how it has really influenced our lives. And then we'll have a discussion about how you have taken advantage of the long tail and in some fashion, how you've really enjoyed it and maybe didn't even realize you were riding on the long tail. So specifically, what is the long tail? It began really years ago. It was called the long tail distribution or the power law graph. And it was a statistical discussion. It shows in this example popularity ranking. You can see there's a green section and a yellow section. Those are equal in terms of counts. So you have a high count area at the beginning, and then it trails off into what is the long tail. But both sides are equal, and that's kind of an important point to remember. Long tail distribution, even though studied since 1946, really wasn't popularized until an article by Chris Anderson in 2004. The long tail, why the future of business is selling less of more. And that, even though the long tail was being ridden already in Amazon, Jeff Bezos' head, he had this one figured out. I'm not sure he knew he was on the long tail when he began, but it worked that way. The example I have shown here in the red line is separating what a number of books that brick and mortar stores could have available to buyers when they walked into the store. And then to the right side, it's the number of titles that could be available online. And that's basically what he did. When he introduced Amazon, the ads talked about the biggest bookstore in the world. And it got everybody's attention. And basically, he has expanded the product categories infinitely based on the Amazon story. Now, another thing he's done, which hasn't been fully appreciated, he's managed to expand the store to allow other sellers to use his front end. And as a result, he's transferred inventory risk to the other sellers. So he can almost run an entire retail operation without any inventory risk if he so chose. Although he's going the other direction, he's knocking off some of his sellers' good items and putting them out in other ways. But it's a phenomena. It's something we, of course, in Seattle can really appreciate because we can all take credit. Now, the internet access and actually Amazon is a combination of factors. Internet access, the use of GUI, the graphical user interface that I think that Apple pretty much led on, but my alma mater, Microsoft, copied pretty quickly. And a long tail changed the retail business. It also changed about everything else in our life. And that's my point here, that it couldn't help but change everything. Education and training, for example, University of Phoenix in 1989 began with a bulletin board foundation. When I was teaching marketing and communications courses on the University of Phoenix, I would instruct my students to load the bulletin board, and I would start downloading on a 1200 baud modem and then go to dinner because it would take that long for all of their homework to download. Now it's a lot quicker. Corporate training shifted what we did. I used to have a broadcast operation in Tacoma where we would have 1 hour training sessions for all the tellers and new accounts and retail lenders in the banking and credit union business. And they would go to the local junior college or community college to watch the broadcast. Now, the benefit of that was that those were essentially low-level employees, and you could not afford to send them to a central location for training. So we managed to provide training using that capability, and that all went away with the internet. Now it can be done on the desktop. The same can be said for our teaching our students at home during COVID, podcasting, and of course, learning anything you want to learn on YouTube. Advertising changed significantly too. The biggest challenge for small retailers and advertisers was you had to buy local SMA areas. So it was really tough to afford newspaper ads and for surely not TV ads in a single market to reach somebody that just lives in Bothell. It also allows psychographic targeting instead of demographic, which is really like throwing a really big rock against a window and you never know what you're going to hit. And it allows for immediate response. So that's significant. What else has changed? Publishing, self-publishing never would have happened without this phenomenon. And of course, retail sales, dining out, open table. Now I can get a restaurant anywhere in the country if I'm planning a trip by going online. Groceries, we can type it in to Amazon in the morning and it'll be there by the afternoon, although it's soon going to charge us a little bit more. They've kind of figured out that's not economically very sound. Entertainment, streaming. Now so many people have gotten rid of just their cable because they can stream what they want when they want. We've also seen a massive shift in the job mix in most corporations. Technology workers have become mainstream influencers within the corporate, sitting at the board table now, and really dictates the way some companies operate. More people work from home, although I did read yesterday that we passed that a 50% mark of back at the office. There is a shift back. Some people figured out that their employees all remotely alone are getting isolated and going a little loony, I guess. Freelance and contract working, however, is still big. Fashion, wow. Social media influencers. Unbelievable how some 18-year-old can make $500,000 a year by showing how to put eye makeup on. And home cooking, TikTok, hacks. I love hacks. Nice, fun things to do and try in the kitchen. There's also an impact on personal relationships. It really has hit families because of Facebook, as an example. You can be in daily contact. Now, there's some good news about that and some that you got to watch out for, because some things are known that some people didn't want their parents to know. But it has had an impact. At Christmas letters, the old tradition, the 1 or 2 page letter that you send out once a year to friends, you don't need to anymore because they're knowing what you're doing every day as you post every restaurant you go to. There is a loss of privacy that we have to learn to deal with, and it's certainly not frictionless. There are challenges. But on the plus side, we can catch up with old high school friends and be in touch. I have a grandson I've only seen twice in his life, and he's now 21, and he lives in Georgia. I never would have been able to keep up, but now we're in touch almost every week. I convinced him to go back to college, even though he thought he knew it all. He graduated. He's now employed dutifully, and he's doing a great job. And we're in touch constantly and know about his girlfriends, his new place he just moved to, his dogs. It's something you wouldn't have otherwise. So it's a phenomenal benefit of this thing. So I want to hear your examples now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to back out of the sharing so I can see the whole crowd. And I'm going to pick on a couple of people who I think probably have some idea that they've been writing the long tail. And I'm going to start with Mara. if you don't mind, I think you could probably give us a good explanation of how you've benefited in your publishing and business.
I'm glad you started with me because I want to make sure I'm connecting the dots with the long tail. So help me translate this. I started publishing on demand. I have 4 children's books. And so what you're saying is that in the past, I would have been stuck trying to get those in a few retail stores. I think I have them in 3. But because I'm publishing on demand, I'm able to ride that long wave and connect it on Amazon, Etsy, and it's on demand whenever. Is that the way to translate that?
That's, I think, the basic understanding of it. Yes. Okay. And the interesting side point here, when Amazon took off, which they did like a rocket on books, they actually did not sell as many mainstream as you would expect, and they sold an awful lot of strange and unique and kind of obsolete titles. But I think that's changed now to be a normal mix. But it did open the door for you, as I understand it.
Absolutely. And I would say most of my businesses, everything from Airbnb that we did for a while, we don't have any currently. That dynamic has changed. The way that I work, coaching online, even being a Toastmaster, we have had an uptick in the number of members that we have because it's not all in person. We are really thriving as a club.
It's great answer. Thanks, Mara. Kelly, can I get from you some insight on how this might be helping you get your business going up here in the beautiful Northwest?
Sure. Thank you, Warren. For me, it was really about the online education component that you touched on with YouTube. I wasn't sure when I moved here because all my family and clients from my other business were in California, and I was just kind of lost. And before I found Toastmasters again, I did YouTube and just learned as much as I could about video production. I think I got a 4-year video film school done in about 6 months. I just went full 8 hours a day for 6 months and finished the course, which I would have never been able to do before. So education for me has propelled me into having new offers for my business.
Great. Thanks, Kelly. Nancy, let me ask you a question. You're always pretty busy and active in whatever region you're living in, but you moved into a new one, far removed from your old one. Did you take advantage of promoting or getting your word out there locally and getting connected and giving some talks?
I'm on the cusp of that. I've been actually shaking hands Toastmaster style. It's really shocking to people. They don't expect you to shake their hands. But I've been doing a lot more physical and in-person networking here than I did in the Pacific Northwest, because I'm not near the Seattle freeze and people are so warm and friendly. But now I do a portion of my business online as a technical writer. My client is in Washington, but I'm opening up my Reiki and channeling to people around the world. And that is phenomenal.
Great. Thanks, Nancy. Dan, let me ask you, is there a long tail up in Canada?
Yeah, I mean, those of you who know me know that I'm executive at a Chamber of Commerce. And before the pandemic, we had 60 to 70 live events a year, and it went down to 0 when the pandemic hit. Obviously, with the advancement of Zoom technology, we're able to do a lot of things online. Actually, and some things are going to stay online. You know, without this advancement in technology, I wouldn't be a part of this club. I wouldn't be able to come here every Tuesday as well. So it's given me this opportunity. And in my personal life, I'm looking at getting some certification, transferring into a new career. I would have had to gone to school, for full time, probably give up my current job in order to do it. Now I can do it while I'm holding down my current job and getting certification in a different way. So the changes have been beneficial to my life, for my work in general.
Great. Thanks, Dan. I'd like to open it up for others who can give examples and share. And let me encourage you to use the hand raising device on on Zoom. I assume that most of you can see that down on the lower menu. Leah, I saw your hand itself.
Yeah. So, I mean, this I think applies to me a lot. In the same way that Dan mentioned, I was able to be working full time and still in school for, I mean, almost 2 years. And that absolutely would not have been possible previously. And even more than that, the school I went to, OSU, is just in another state entirely. And so to be going to school in another state and also holding down a full-time job that is physically not that close away, but because I can't drive, it's more than an hour away. But instead, like, all I have to do is switch screens. So that, yeah, I think I've benefited a lot from the long tail, which is pretty cool.
Thanks, Leah. Deanna, I see your hand raised.
I wanted to relate this. I have a 26-year-old son, and in terms of the long tail, he for years has been, I guess, riding that. He does articles on high school recruiting of athletes. And so he will follow certain high school athletes and their college prospects. And he's been doing that for years. The point I wanted to make about it is that it's allowed him to catch a very wide net, because they can go on websites and have phone interviews and Zoom interviews. However, when it came to choosing a career, he was very wary of sitting by himself in his office at home, working by himself all the time as a 26-year-old. So what he actually chose to do is he works part-time in a high school working directly with students, and then he does freelancing for the other part of that. So I just wanted to highlight that as a social phenomena that young people, especially when you're at the stage where you're developing social relationships and contacts, he found that to be a challenge to just be working by himself all the time, and thus kind of tweaked his career path. So he made sure that he got out and got into a setting with other people.
Great. Good example. Thanks, Deanna. Do we have any other hands raised? I'm not seeing any more hands, so I'm going to thank you all for great. Oh, wait a minute. Victor just popped up.
If we have time, I can chime in.
I think we're good. I'm just being warned.
Okay. I'll approach it from the other end. I think I've been riding the long tail when it comes to working from home. So having that flexibility to work from home. Prior to the pandemic, I had probably a 2.5 hour round trip commute to downtown Seattle, which afforded me the opportunity to do my online schooling. Like Leah was saying, you know, I was able to get my bachelor's and MBA throughout that commute process. But more importantly, now I feel like I'm reaping the fruits of just being able to be home with my daughter in the mornings before I can spend that quality time. As well as with anyone that's had children in daycare knows when she's sick, I'm able to stay, you know, have the flexibility to be home and be able to take care of her. And, you know, also just the flexibility of being able to work out when I want to. So it also impacts my own health. I have a gym in my home, thankfully. And if I'm having a Zoom call that I don't have to be on video, I can maybe just be riding my bike or doing a quick little workout on the side.
Great. Thank you, Victor. I can relate to that. I try to get to the Y 3 to 4 days a week, and I can tell when I'm there, because I'm retired, so it's not an issue, but I can tell there are a lot of people who are working from home and taking advantage of the opportunity to stay healthy. It's really great. Any other questions or comments for the good of the order? Otherwise, I'll say thank you for your participation, and back to you, Madam Toastmaster.